Hello, everyone, and welcome to adfartech Ventures, today's podcast episode. And I'm the host of the show, Sonal Shah, and we have a very special guest with us, Rudra Sekhri, a multifaceted personality who has made significant stride as an astronomer, environmentalist, author, founder, public speaker, programmer, tutor, researcher, and music producers. And I don't know what all things he is doing. And Rudra has been featured on the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and is the recipient of the City of Whittlesea Young Citizen of the Year Award. So it's for me and as per at Tech Venture podcast, it's an honor to have him here today. So today, Rudra is here to share his insights on how students and emerging tech leaders can succeed in a rapidly evolving tech landscapes. And we are also going to dwell into the different topics like artificial intelligence, machine learning, digital transformation, technology trends, and data science. So, without further ado, I would like to invite my youngest guest on this show as a Rudra Sekhri to the show. And Rudra, it's a very great morning for me and my listeners that you are with us today. So thank you so much for coming and joining this show. And it's really a pleasure for all of us to have you today on our show. Thank you so much, Rudra, for joining this show.
No, thank you, because I really feel like there aren't that many resources, particularly for young students and for emerging tech leaders, as you mentioned, for them to really get an insight and to really put their best foot forward when it comes to presenting themselves and really adapting to this rapidly evolving tech landscape, especially with the introduction of new technology such as artificial intelligence and new machine learning models. So it's thank you for having me on the podcast.
That's a great. That's a great. That being so generous with us. So that's our pleasure. So thank you so much, Rudra, for joining this podcast. And Rudra, before we begin the formal things with the question and answer sessions, I would also like to give a brief about my organization. So if you permit me, I would also like to give a few words on what we are doing and how we are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So much. So, as I say in the beginning itself, that this podcast is hosted by the adfartech Venture. We are IT and tech platform with the focus on IT solutions, IT resources, IT recruitments, and these kinds of a tech audio podcast. And we have a vendor alliances with the 50 plus tech partners, including SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Pega, OutSystem, APN, Cellflow, Cloudera, Informatica, and many more too. And for solution, if I say, we provide almost all the kinds of software-related solutions like ERP, application development, then comes data and AI/ML, blockchain, cloud managed services, UX UI testing, and the cybersecurity too. And when I say resources, the major skills which we have is we can deliver on-site and offshore within the 24 hours, and that is globally with more than 2,000 resources all across the globe. So at FAR, we love to hear from, visionary tech leaders that what they are doing, how they are doing. And similar way, we are also impressed with your LinkedIn bio and experiences. So we would like to know, learn more about the tech trends and tech innovations and other invaluable experiences that can be, best helpful for the other tech followers also and other people, those who are into the queue to making something bigger. So this is all about at Tech Venture and all about the podcast. So I hope this podcast will be greater help for all the listeners and all the fellow creators, those who are, making the line very easy for the people who are next behind them. So this is all about me and my adfartech Venture podcast. And again, thank you so much for today being with us. So that's all about me.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, I feel like again, I really sort of want to make this explicit as to, sort of what my purpose is, because I feel like a lot of tech leaders, when they talk about certain topics, especially topics that are sort of quite hot right now is how I would describe them. They often talk about it from a very technical standpoint, and with the assumption that the majority of the audience is going to be uh, very much people who are already well equipped in that space, or who are already well equipped in other spaces, but then transitioning to the niches that the guest is talking about. There's I feel like we need to make an active effort to um, pretty much allow and facilitate the upbringing of new leaders through resources such as these podcasts to help them in discovering what they want to do in the many tech fields that there are present today.
Yes, absolutely. And we are also getting that much of good response. That's incredible. So thank you so much again. So Rudra, if you are ready, I can start with the question and answer because I'm more curious to know something more in detail about.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Rudra, you have had an impressive journey so far, you know. So, can you start by telling us a bit about your background and the various roles you play in your own different tech drivens, as well as being an environmental, change makers, as well as author of a book. So, how you have travel this interdisciplinary knowledge and gain benefits in the today's tech landscape. So just brief about yourself in your words, please.
Y- So I truly believe that when we have when we start on a journey like this, it's often very important to note that students are just looking for opportunities of any kind to help them have a boost in their career and so on and so forth. I happened to start from a very early age when it came to that because I had a lot of support to pursue programming and IT from a very young age. So while other people would be learning very basic programming through a proprietary software and all these other drag and drop programming languages, which you would find would be very useful for students learning the basics. I was already building web applications and all these other and many other complicated softwares by myself. And I developed skills in Python, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And what what I tried to do is when I was starting off and I was learning how to program the very basics, what I was essentially looking for is, what projects can I work on that will help me advance my skills, but at the same time are also going to be very fun and very practical projects. And so one of the earliest, sort of projects that I worked on was I decided, how is it that we got Microsoft Word? It's a very fantastic text editing application. How do we get to this point? And I thought I wanted to make my own rudimentary version of that, essentially make a replica of that in Python at the when I was about 11 years old. 10, 11 years old. So because I was fascinated, I was very much interested in seeing, sort of the level of expertise that it takes to make, an application like Word with grammar correction and spelling corrections and all that, and saving to files and all that type of stuff. So I made this very much rudimentary version of that in Python, using it, and I learned significant skills in while developing that application, such as the basics of REST APIs, GET and POST requests. To experts this might seem very very simple, trivial things, but when you're learning this for the first time, it's very much new, and it's very much sort of an eye-opening moment, simply because of the fact that you never thought that this was actually possible. You thought that a program is a program. Everything is done like as a standalone software, rather than, these interconnected pieces where, an application is sending, API requests to multiple different APIs and getting their responses, and, manipulating those and using those for the benefits of the application. But that's the world that we live in now. We live in a world of, serverless computing and all these and a world where, there's more interconnectedness between different applications through the use of APIs and through the use of all these other new techniques that are popping up in the field. So that's pretty much where I started. And the reason why I've gone into disciplinary with my journey is simply because of that fundamental principle, in that students are just looking for opportunities. And so at some point, I happened to get in contact with some officers from the local government. Here in Australia, we refer to them as the local council. But for international listeners, local council means local government. And so I happened to just get in contact with a couple of officers from the local government, and they were running programs, for in local facilities such as, tech schools and, libraries and so on and so forth, where students who have skills in programming could then apply those skills in projects that actually could be deployed in the municipality for the benefit of the community and to help solve local environmental problems. And so, because of the fact that I'd worked on many projects prior to that, and I had some sort of, some programming experience, not crazy good programming experience, but good enough for a student. I soon began leading that one particular student group, and from there we built many products, and we sort of deployed those in many places around the local area. If I was to name a couple of projects that we worked on, so the first project was the water quality monitoring system. Again, to some people that may seem like a very simple thing, but building that from scratch using, our own processes and our own, thoughts and logic and all that type of stuff, considering that we were all students and it was pretty much a student-led project, was quite a fascinating task. And it wasn't as easy as some people would think. And so we utilized a wide variety of different technologies. Particularly, you took advantage of the LoRa network, LoRa network capabilities. And so the LoRa network, so LoRa actually stands for long range, so hence the name LoRa. So the reason why we preferred the LoRa network for use in this system is because of the fact that it's low energy, but it's also long range. So it uses radio waves to communicate information, and it feeds into it's just one aspect of the Internet of Things network that we were sort of advocating for in our own little group. So we developed this project with the aim of having remote sensors that were solar powered, that would be constantly feeding information, which hopefully through school programs and other initiatives, students can then use that data, and teachers could use that for educational purposes as well, to sort of show that how human activity is impacting local waterways, because there's a very serious problem when it comes to water quality management, not just in Australia but all around the world. And it's important to raise awareness about that, because not many people know about it, and there's a fair chance that people will overlook the significance of the problem.
That's great. That's great. So you have integrated diverse skills and different knowledge and effectively collaborated all across the various fields. So in today's interconnected world, it's a really huge success you have got in very younger age. So that's a brilliant thing you are doing, Rudra. So given your diverse background, what do you think, as per your experience, that what are the key areas that today's student must focus on these tech stack to stay ahead?
For me, I would say that the main thing that students need to focus on if they're going to succeed in this rapidly evolving tech landscape, I think that's become the theme of this podcast: the rapidly evolving tech landscape and how to prepare for it. I think for students, the main thing that they got to focus on is data science, and AI. If you can master those two things, you are very much set for the future. And there's a lot of reasoning behind why I'm making such a statement, and I'm sure you can see the reasons why. And it's simply because we now live in an age where there is so much data that companies and corporations and organizations are actively looking for people who have the skill sets to be able to take that large sums of data and be able to analyze it and be able to determine trends from that data, which can be used for a multitude of different applications. So, for example, customer data can be used when companies are deciding and making economic decisions. So, this is stuff that's been happening for a long time, but now with the presence of the increased number and ways of data collection, there is so much more data in this world that there's a demand for people who are able to take that data and manipulate it and present it in a way that's easy to understand for people who are actually actively taking those decisions within an organization or within a corporation. So that's the first thing, learning data science. And the second thing that I would say is AI. Sorry, you were going to say something?
No. I'm just, not interrupting in that way, but I would like to add one, the question into these only. That you are also working in the astronomy as well as environmental science. So can you just define the linkages between how these two that you have suggested, that AI, ML, as well as data science, that have helped you as well as you are proposing to others that they can benefit it to you also, them also?
Yeah. So okay. So what I'll do is I'll finish off my previous point, which was on like which areas that I deem pretty necessary. So as I was mentioning, data science, but also AI, and it's fairly obvious why I'm saying AI, and that is that we are seeing the increased use of different types of AI models. The most popular right now being the GPT infrastructure, which is being used for models such as ChatGPT by OpenAI, Gemini by Google. All these generative AI models are they're seeing a massive increase in usage, and there's a very much big demand for people who are able to understand precisely how AI models work, how to train AI based on training data sets, and then and understand the full processes behind actually developing an AI model. And if they don't need to develop an AI model because one already exists, for example, you don't need to create your own GPT model, GPT text model. You can just use ChatGPT as the basis for your own GPT model. Even then, you still need to have expertise as to how to take a pre-existing model and create a variant of that that suits your specific needs for the project or task that you're working on. And so these are the two areas that students should be focusing on the most. And there are plenty of online resources that are able to help you get started in those areas. For me, my personal experience with AI is that I first learned about the applications of AI through a project that I was working on back in I think it was 2017 or 2018. So this was well before GPT was first introduced by Google. Google introduced GPT infrastructures in mid 2018 or something along those lines. So back then, AI was still very much an early, still very much in its sort of early developmental stages, because people hadn't really accepted AI. Besides the occasional deep fakes, like the general public hadn't accepted AIs as much as they do now. So I was experimenting with, using a specific, learning different types of AI models, number one, but number two, then selecting the most beneficial AI model and using that to develop an AI system that would essentially allow you to just identify, whether a specific set of coordinates would be considered too close to a road on a map. It's again, it seems very simple and it seems very rudimentary, but the application for that is that in Australia we've got, I'm sure you've heard of this, we've got many kangaroos, but the problem is that a lot of these kangaroos and other wild animals occasionally make their way onto roads, and naturally when they make their way onto roads, they may not see cars and cars may not see them, and so you get a lot of accidents. And so to curb the amount of accidents that are happening and to reduce the risk of accidents, we were developing a system that would basically allow us to track kangaroos and other wild animals, and then when they got too close to a road, that would notify nearby drivers that that there are wild animals near the road, and that you have to slow down to ensure that you don't crash into one of these things. So that was, and the main premise of the idea is that we're going to be using an AI model to be able to determine whether a kangaroo is really close to or a wild animal is really close to the road or not. And so this didn't really pass much of the experimental phase, simply because there was another project that we were working on simultaneously that saw a lot more promise. And the main principle of our group, the group that I was leading, was that we want things to be practical but also easy to learn for students. So the idea was that once we build it ourselves, the idea is that we would run school programs so that other students can build it, and it would sort of form this chain effect, chain reaction effect, where multiple students would be working on the same project, and they would then deploy it in their own local areas, and that would sort of start a chain reaction. And so that was our our main philosophy. And so back then, AI was sort of this very new thing, especially to many students, and so it was we sort of had to think from that perspective as well. So where it comes into astronomy. So this is the second part of the second question that you were asking. Where does it come into astronomy? And for data science, it's fairly easy. In astronomy, you deal with petabytes of data, not terabytes, not gigabytes, petabytes of data. So take roughly 1,000 terabytes of data. That's how much data some astronomers have to deal with. So I'm sure you remember the news from 2019, the first ever real image of a black hole. Yep. So that was using petabytes worth of data. That was and those were transported on hard disks, on planes, to data centers and supercomputers where that would be processed. But astronomy is very much a discipline where not only do you need to know science and mathematics, but you also need to know data science to with exceptional accuracy. And you need to know data science simply, and you also need to know some basics of supercomputing, because 9 times out of 10, when you're working on a project, if you were to run the one program on a laptop, that would take hours. But if you're able to create a supercomputing job where that that one program may take 20 minutes, so that saves a lot of time. So also knowing the basics of how supercomputing works is very essential in astronomy. So data science obviously plays a big part, but now there's also an increased use of artificial intelligence, not generative AI that we are seeing with ChatGPT, but more so AI that is primarily used for categorization and modeling. So that's the type of AI that we're currently seeing in astronomy. So these two things definitely have their applications, and they're going to become more and more prevalent in many other fields in the future. Astronomy just happens to be the one that adopts these new technologies at a much faster pace, simply because of the fact that in astronomy you have terabytes and petabytes worth of data to process, and they are happy to adopt new technologies and new processes that can speed that up. So
that's very interesting things you are, not only just giving us something insight into the technology, but how this technology is also, working with the astronomical science as well as environmental science. So that's a very interesting thing, Rudra, you are saying to all of our listeners. So thank you so much for sharing the highlights on that. And Rudra, my next question is also in line with this. Now, you have said that, AI, then this data science, and all are how incorporating into the tech world. So nowadays, this digital transformation is also the hot topics. So how can one prepare themselves to contribute and thrive in this digital era?
Again, so when we think about the digital transformation, in my mind, when I think of digital transformation, I'm thinking of bringing everyone along in a in this in this digital era as you described. And the reason why is because what we're finding is that because technology is evolving so much more rapidly than in the past, and we've reached this digital era where everything can essentially be done online and through a digital medium. We're sort of losing a lot of the a lot of the younger generation is using that for not necessarily beneficial purposes for themselves. So, for example, when the internet was first started, everyone was sort of thinking that this would be a great resource for students. Sure, it would create job insecurities in some areas, but overall it would be a good resource for students. It would be a good resource for everyone, because that would mean that all this information is now available for everyone, and everyone just needs a device with an internet connection to access it. Likewise, nowadays, everyone was saying that AI is going to revolutionize the world, and it has. In the sense that AI will allow us to essentially automate much more complicated tasks than before. And not only that, not only is AI good for automation, but it's also good for generating text, voice, sounds, and all these other different mediums of communication, which is very, very, very much beneficial in the sense that now AI models can communicate through natural language, which is the language that we're speaking right now, like English or Hindi, and so on and so forth. But again, what we're seeing right now is that one, the internet has been, because of the unforeseen implications of the internet. Now we've got stuff like social media, which students are spending way too much excessive time on. and that's sort of impeding on their on their studies and so on and so forth. Not only that, but we're seeing the rapid use of AI by students in when completing homework assignments, and it's simply because there's this innate sense of or this idea that we want to increase productivity, but that increase in productivity, I believe, almost always comes at the cost of something. And for students, that comes at the cost of actually learning the content. For content creators who use generative AI to create content, that comes with the cost of a sense of personality from the content that is generated, because AI currently, as I see it, although you could argue that GPT-4o, the latest model by OpenAI, has a sense of personality, but for the vast majority of people, they'll still find ChatGPT's text fairly generic, and text that lacks human personality. So we're always seeing this sort of balance of benefits, but also downsides. And I think another thing that we're seeing is that the older generation is not able to keep up with this rapidly evolving tech world. And because of that, they're often being left behind as crucial aspects of society are becoming digitalized. So, for example, our banking system became digitalized 20 years ago, and that's been rapidly evolving since. And so, we need to ensure that everyone is understanding both the benefits and the risks and the potential downsides of new evolving technologies, and that we're able to adapt our current society with this evolving landscape. And that's what I truly believe. I believe that technology is paired with good education is the way that we can ensure that students are best prepared for the future. So that's why, whenever we worked on projects prior to COVID, after COVID, the group that I used to work with switched roles, and now they run exclusively school programs. But prior to that, when we were working on projects, we would always consider, while working on those projects, is the project easy to understand for students? And that's simply because we don't want this to be a closed project just for us, just for 10 people. We want this to be a project that eventually you could see groups of 10 or 20 students working on, given that they have, prerequisite knowledge on how programming works, which is easily teachable in modern classrooms. And that's another thing. The education system is just not able to keep up. So we need to when we're talking about digital transformation doesn't just mean the digitalization of existing services and or products. Digital transformation means transforming the world such that it can easily adapt to to further digital transformation. And so that's the thing that not a lot of policymakers understand. And it's why our current systems are just too slow at adapting. So that's my thoughts.
That's a great. So now adding on these only, if I ask you very some personal question that how you have learned so much of good knowledge, and what are the platform that you also recommend to tech enthusiasts to stay updated with the latest techs and trends and advancement? Because from each of your conversation, I know that you are giving too much of knowledge and sharing too much of insights into what the world is going on with the greatest example. So that's very great of you. So first of all, let me know how you have gained this much of knowledge, and what are the best resources that you found the most useful according to you?
Yeah, so I truly believe that if you're a student who genuinely wants to learn about this digital space that we're currently in, the best way is to look at resources that you used for entertainment purposes, and looking at those and thinking, they're also learning resources. So a good example of that is YouTube. That's pretty much where I learned the basics of Python. You would think that I would have done a course on it, but the truth of the matter is that YouTube offers excellent resources for a multitude of different things. Podcasts such as these are great ways to understand what's going on in the minds of. I'm not necessarily an expert, but other experts, on and their views on certain topics. So podcasts are also a great way. On YouTube, you can learn a variety of different things. For example, UI UX design. You can learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and all these different things. In fact, I learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript from YouTube as well. So all the basics I learned from YouTube, and then I consolidated whatever I learned on YouTube through a course that would, reinforce some of the good coding principles and some of the not so good coding principles that I should not be following. So YouTube is a great resource, but it often can have personal preferences involved as well, in the way that people prefer to write code. Individual creators prefer to write code. So it's often good, once you've watched some resources on YouTube, because it's all free, I would recommend then taking sort of a complementary course to reinforce your understanding, and to also get some sort of certification to show that you've actually done this stuff before. So a great resource for that is LinkedIn Learning. It's probably the best resource. Before that, it used to be called lynda.com. Again, very great resource. It's pretty much where I do all my courses now. If you're in certain countries, I think certain countries have libraries that allow you to, get free access to LinkedIn Learning. So I have access to my I have access to LinkedIn Learning through my library. So my library offers free access. Another great platform for courses is Coursera, but I honestly I would not recommend it as much, simply because while the courses themselves are free, the certificates that you get are not free. So once you complete the course, you don't actually have a way of proving that you've actually done the course. It's very much dependent on the on the recruiter to trust that you've done the content, and figure out a way to test that during the processes of the interview processes and so on and so forth. Besides that, I know this might sound weird, but ChatGPT does offer some good insights for specific questions that you might have, although I wouldn't recommend ChatGPT specifically. I would recommend Microsoft Copilot, simply because, the Bing Copilot search capabilities, simply because of the fact that with Bing Copilot, it does provide references to whatever it's saying. So you can sort of be more confident in what it's saying is actually true, and you can verify what it's saying is true. So if you have very specific questions that you can't seem to answer through the existing resources, then Bing Copilot is a good option. But by far the best resource is actually to network. So to network with people. So if you are a student who can afford this, do actually try and seek going to meetups, going to local meetups, because you'll find a lot of startups there who are looking for people who are willing to join them. The meetups are a great way to network with people who are both experienced but also fairly new to the space. You've got conferences and events. So again, that's a great way to network with and get to know the niche that you're interested in. If you're a university student, the universities offer plenty of clubs, initiatives, and other programs for you to be able to excel in certain niches as well. So from what I know, here at Swinburne University, which is the university that I'm a part of, they do offer quite a range of clubs and initiatives, such as the Swinburne Rover team, such as the there are many coding clubs, so they offer many coding clubs. They have game development clubs, so on and so forth. So if you're a university student, universities offer great opportunities that may require you to do some volunteering, but if it comes with the benefit of having a very strong CV, then that's obviously something that I would recommend taking. So that's pretty much it.
Yes, that's a great answer. As of now, you have stated all the free learning materials as well as the paid also. So I think that will be great help for the students that who are keeping eye on the things which are going on in the tech trends. So, according to you, what trends do you foresee in the tech industry that students must keep an eye on? Because I know you have stated almost everything that, the role of AI, data science, and everything that's at play. But according to you, if I ask you that, what will be the future of tech industry, and what the people should, must focus on that particular trends. So, any advice for that?
Yeah, so there are three things that I see that will be sort of in my vision for the future, in a tech-driven future. Two I've already mentioned, which is the increased demand for data scientists, so people who are experts in data science, but also the increased use of artificial intelligence, specifically the increased use of generative AI. I just find that generative AI just has such potential in our modern landscape to to assist us in generating ideas, or assist us in certain tasks that might previously would have taken significant amounts of time. It's just increasing productivity, and so we're reaching the stage now in the world where we're seeing this. We're going to see in the next couple of years an increased amount of data that's being collected and used. We're going to see an increased use of AI to categorize and group that data, and potentially use that data that's being collected for generative purposes. We'll see the increased use of data science, specifically in the creation of new AI models that use different statistics to during the fine tuning process, and you might find that the increased use of mathematics, because nowadays, if you look at AI models, they're essentially based on very mathematical statistical models that have been developed. So having a basic understanding of certain crucial mathematics, such as calculus, such as probability and statistics, linear algebra, these three are the key areas that you should probably be learning in the mathematical space, simply because linear algebra deals with vectors and vector spaces, which is essentially how AI works. AI works by through the fine tuning of multiple vector spaces, essentially, and different matrices, and manipulating those matrices to come up with an output based on training data that is being given. You've got probability and statistics. So whatever the AI generates, it's generating based on probabilities and statistical models. And if you look at ChatGPT, for example, the way that it generates text such that the next word is going to be the most probable word in the sequence of words, and then that sequence then becomes sentences, and then paragraphs, and then it becomes something intelligible. It gives a sense of an idea. So we're going to see an increased use of mathematics in the digital space. I see in the future the increased use of the increased role of the Internet of Things network. So this is something that I'm not sure if many people have talked about. I feel like we're going to see young leaders in particular take Internet of Things as a platform for not only for a platform for other students to learn, but a platform by which you can create that will allow for unique solutions to be developed for unique problems in the community. Because I feel like there are similar problems everywhere in the world. There's always, there's water management issues, as I mentioned. There's pollution issues, and so on and so forth. But the way that those problems are, have developed in those regions is different. They all have unique circumstances, and being able to use the Internet of Things to truly identify and monitor these problems within communities will allow for the development of unique policies that apply specifically to that community, and will improve effectiveness in new policy decisions as well. So we'll see the increased use of data, with more data-driven decisions being made, even at a government level. We've already seen this come to play in certain areas, but we'll see an increased use of that as well.
Great. That's great. Thank you so much, Rudra, for sharing this wonderful insights and tips. But last but not the least, as the youngest leader in each of our these podcasts, I would like to ask you one more question: that what would be one advice you would like to give to aspiring tech enthusiastic, or the tech people, or the students to lead into the tech industry?
This is one thing that I've been resonating with quite a lot recently, and it's a quote that I can't remember the source of. I'm not sure who said it, but I do remember this, and that is that, and I'm not even sure if I'm saying this right, but I definitely remember the meaning of the quote, and the quote was that you should love the company's values, not the company itself. And so this is a quote that I think will really provide a lot of meaning to young people. And my interpretation of this is that, the people who are the most successful in the world truly understand the vision of the company, but they fall in love with the vision of that company, not the company itself. They don't work for Apple because they like Apple. No, or they don't work for Microsoft because they like Microsoft. They like the vision of Microsoft, or they like the vision of Apple. They like the vision of these tech companies. But if they feel like the company is not actually, fulfilling those, that vision that they thought that the company had, then they will find another company that, it has that same vision that they align with, and they will, the idea is, the point that I'm trying to make is that if you want to succeed in this space, you really got to understand that it's the values that define a company, not the actual company itself. So that's something that I would definitely recommend for students.
That's very great advice you have given, that love the job, not the company as such, if I say in a one line. So that's a brilliant examples you have given of the Apple also. So your expertise as well as experience are really, really, really inspiring for all of us. And I am sure our listeners have also gained a lot of useful informations, and especially how to succeed in this rapidly evolving tech landscapes. So that's great. So before we wrap up, I would like to remind our listeners to check out adfartech Venture as an innovative platform dedicated to advancing technological solutions for a better future, and helping you with each of your needs. So, dear listeners, I hope you all have enjoyed the discussion with Rudra Sekhri, and he has given each and every bits and pieces of what the technology should be useful or beneficial to you in your future tech creations, as well as what is the things going on inside each and every organizations. So one more thing, I don't know why Rudra has not referred, but instead of him, I am referring to that Rudra has also written 2 books, and it's also very interesting on the astronomy, the Earth Needs You, and one other book is I think the 9 People.
So the first book that I wrote was The Earth Needs You, which was a book on a student's perspective on climate change. And the second book was The 9 Marbles. It was inspired by an image of Jupiter, where NASA described Jupiter as a marble. And so that's where the name came from. So 8 planets plus 1 sun, that gives you 9 marbles in the solar system. So,
very interesting books on his buckets also. So Rudra is doing very great initiatives with his latest projects and works with his, the different interests in the astronomy as well as tech trends. So
Yep.
yeah, so that's a very great of Rudra. So this is all about today's podcast, and I hope you all have enjoyed a lot. And Rudra, you have also, I think, shared a very good knowledge and expertise to these episodes. So thank you so much again for sharing your valuable insights and tips.
No, thank you. Again, if you do want to get in contact with me with further questions, the best platform to do so is LinkedIn. Just make sure that when you are connecting on LinkedIn, please do just let me know that you watched this podcast and that you have some further questions that you would like to ask. So yeah, that's all I need to say. If you do want to connect with me, LinkedIn is the best option.
Yes, that's a great. That's a great. So, as rightly said by Rudra, dear fellow listeners, if you want to know more about his journey and how he is doing, wants to know something more in details about his books and his works, just go and follow him with the name of Rudra Sekhri, and you can find his best of the books and the projects that he is leading right now. And if you want to know more about the other tech trends and other tech leaders are doing, just follow the adfartech Venture podcast, and you can find the most interesting topics and the most interesting things that people are doing. So thank you all of you for tuning in us and joining this podcast. So till the time, stay curious, keep learning, and until next time, take care all of you. Thank you so much for listening this podcast. Thank you.